You're welcome to the Yaroba Naya show. Today I'm joined by Clare Treston, known as Where, Where and Why Whisper. Clare is a strategy and author who help leaders and team find clarity by defining where they are going and why it matters. Through her work with hundreds of organizations and her book Where and the Whys, she has helped team turn visions and purpose into something practical, shared, and actionable. It's really a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Arrow.
Claire, what was it like growing up for you?
So I was really fortunate. I grew up in Cairns in Australia, so it's really tropical. It's where the Barrier Reef is, where Nemo lives. So it's a really lovely place to grow up. And I grew up on a nice big property. We had horses and chickens and cats and dogs and everything. So and lots of tropical fruit trees with mangoes and lychees and all of that sort of thing. So I had a really lovely upbringing in Cairns in Australia.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So you work with hundreds of businesses across Australia. What pattern did you begin to notice earlier on when you actually started out?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to work with a government program which made strategic planning free for businesses participating within the government initiative. So normally a strategic planning workshop can be quite expensive for a business. So this sort of broke down that sort of cost barrier. So I was able to work with hundreds of businesses of all different industries and all over Australia. So the outback to the city and fashion designers, farmers, AI startups, manufacturers. So it was a real diverse and eclectic mix of businesses working with all these diverse businesses. So it was a real blessing. So I was able to gather data and keep gaining insights about what works and also what doesn't work and what's practical for a small or medium business to implement. So the patterns that I noticed sort of in strategic planning was having a really simple and actionable framework was really important, and also something that wasn't time consuming for the business, because the most precious thing for the businesses is usually time. So having something that's really simple and not a big waffly document, it's something that's really easy for everyone in the organization, because a lot of the time these organizations aren't very big either. So it's something that everyone in the organization can feel like they have some ownership of and they can action it every day. So when I use a moonshot analogy, so if you can imagine a picture of a rocket ship taking off and then there's the moon. So you have the where, and that goes beside the moon, and then you have the why, and that goes beside the rocket fuel, the energy that's coming out of the rocket. So just those two statements, and have it on a poster on the wall. And then everybody in the organization every day can look at that poster and go, hey, this is what we're doing. Remember, this is where we're going and why we're going there. So it's kind of a really simple framework that it makes it accessible for everyone in the organization.
Wow, wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing, Claire. So why do so many strategic plans fail, even when they look good on paper?
Probably, I think they're too complex, and also the part of the process that I do is it's a co-creation process. So it involves more than just the top down, the leader saying, this is the plan, this is where we're going. It's actually other people in the team have contributed to that plan. And there's actually a McKinsey study that it's 3.4 times more likely to be successful if it's co-created. So involving the team in that process, so they feel like they have ownership of that plan. I would say that would be the biggest failure of most strategic plans, is the leader sort of going top down, going, this is what we're doing, and not really bringing the team on that journey is often, I think, the biggest stumbling block.
Wow, not involving the team. Why building? Wow, thank you very much, Claire. So how is moonshot different from the traditional goals most team are used to when it comes to setting goals?
Mhm. The main thing, so for example, a SMART goal is a traditional goal. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and
Yeah.
timely. So in the things in a SMART goal, so achievable and realistic is what a moonshot is not. So a moonshot is unrealistic, but it makes it exciting for the team if it captures people's imagination. So I have another acronym that I've made for a moonshot, which is STARS, which stands for stretch. So it's 80% impossible, 20% possible. So it's unrealistic. It's tangible. So that is sort of a bit of the SMART goal. So it's measurable and it's time bound. It's aspirational. So it gets the whole team excited and wanting to go on that journey. Relevant. So that's where the 20% possible comes in. So it's within the realm of possibility and it is 20% possible to do it. And then singular is the last part. So it's just one big, exciting goal. And that's also where it's different to a lot of other organizations who have a lot of goals and they're all sort of competing and it can be confusing, whereas this is just one big, chunky, exciting goal for the whole team.
Wow, amazing. Stress, tangible, inspiration, and relevance, and singular. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Thanks for sharing. And
No, that's okay.
why do you encourage leaders to think as far as the end of the decade, not just the next year?
Yes. So the reason, and it actually works really lovely at the moment, Turner is just on 2026. So saying by the end of the decade is the same thing as President Kennedy said in 1962 when he said we want to go to the moon by the end of the decade. So it's something that's really nice and can capture the team's imagination as well, if you sort of think of the narrative around that. So by the end of the decade, what are we going to do? By the end of the year, so by end of 2026, for example, it can be sort of incremental. So, you can do somewhat, but not a lot. So going by the end of the decade, so you're talking 4 years. So you're thinking a little bit longer term and a little bit bigger. And then you work back from that big goal. And then you go, okay, what are we going to do this year to help us to get to that bigger goal? So it's less incremental. So it's just kind of thinking a bit bigger and a bit longer term. And that helps you make decisions today and this year and doing activities to get to that bigger goal. So it just stretches the whole team. One of my clients described it, it lifts your horizon. So you're thinking less small term and short term and more, okay, bigger goal, longer term. And then, there will be things you need to do this year to get to that. But it's just, just thinking a bit bigger and a bit longer term, you can actually achieve more than you think.
Wow, amazing. I think thinking it decades when it comes to planning and setting out things is quite very lovely because sometimes writing more like an actionable that is actionable within a year sometimes can get overwhelming, and sometimes too it's the fact that it takes time to build and it takes time to actually more like create some strategic value. So looking at it in 10, 5 years on and on make a whole lot of sense when it comes to achieving a lot of those particular goals.
Yeah,
So
I think you can get very busy doing a lot of small things, but it's
yeah.
not contributing to something like bigger and more exciting.
Yeah, amazing. So, what are the most common mistake team make when defining their wear?
Okay, so I think the process that I recommend, and it's all in the book of how to do this if you are interested to do it. So what you do is you sort of get that team together in the co-creation stage, as I suggested. So you come up with a vision for that future. So by the end of the decade, so you're not just defining one goal, you're also defining a whole vision for your organization. What products and services are you offering? What customers are you serving? What geographies are you in? What's the team and culture like? So you're detailing all of those kind of things of what does the organization look like at the end of the decade. So you're getting quite a vivid vision. So, and there's actually a study out of Wharton that says 90% of leaders communicate fuzzy or blurry visions that aren't, the team don't know what the vision is. So having a really, really clear vision for the whole team. And then from that, you choose a really clear moonshot from that. So that's the sort of process that I recommend. And then you also, once you have that moonshot, you want to do a bit of a business case around that to make sure that that is where you want to go. Because otherwise you can spend a lot of time and energy in 4 years and then you end up somewhere that you didn't really actually want to go. So making sure that that is something that you want because it can be quite challenging and hard work, and you can spend a lot of time and energy doing something. So you have to make sure it's something that you actually want. And then also, just with the numbers side of things, having your moonshot that it's something that is 80% possible, 20%. 80% impossible, 20% possible, because you kind of want it to be big, but not too big. So it is, 80% impossible. So there is a chance that you can get there because if you keep missing your goals, it can be disheartening for the team. So it needs, you need to be able to make progress against it. But also it needs to be big enough. So you don't want it to be too small, because sometimes teams I've worked with, they have a 4-year goal, for example, and they achieve it within 6 months or something. So they achieve it too quickly. So doing a little bit of a business case around it to make sure that it is kind of in that sweet spot for you, so that it is a proper moonshot.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, Claire. And I think your definition of where it's actually strategic, especially being that it can get overwhelming when there is no clarity built around it, and people only run with visions, they know where they are going, and the fact that it's fully more like clear in there, they know what to do when it comes to the where, being that it was well communicated very well. Yeah, thank you. You also emphasize the why. Why is purpose often misunderstood or watered down in organization?
Yes, a purpose is incredibly powerful. The way that I explain it in the book is so there's the moonshot, which is the goal. And so
Yeah.
that's the rational, the head. And then the rocket fuel to get you to that destination, that is the purpose. That is the why. That is the heart. So if you think of the head and the heart and the where and the why, so this is the energy and the passion that will actually get you to that destination. So if you have a really clear goal, I mean, that's great. And it's a lot of hard work. And the team might be just like, why are we doing this? Like expending all this time and energy and extra effort. So that's where the purpose comes in. So having a really clear purpose that speaks to the heart of the team and, what is the impact of the company. So that's where everyone's going to put in that little bit of extra effort to actually get you to that destination. So it's, if not more important than the goal itself. So and it's really important for team members to feel engaged in their work, and having a really clearly articulated purpose can really help with that. So, and again, I have a acronym to help teams with defining their own purpose statement, which I call ethos. So it should be eternal. So it should last forever. This statement should never change. It should be true. So you can't, be saying one thing and doing another. It should be heartfelt. So it needs to be have an emotional connection. It should create a sense of oneness, so it's unifying for the team, and it should be simple. So I recommend it should be less than 7 words long and should contain less than 3 concepts, so that people can actually remember what it is.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And I think the acronyms that you just make reference of this is very lovely. The ethos, we speak volumes to every one of them, and I think this is amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. So, what happened to a business when the team doesn't truly understand the why behind the work?
Behind their work, well, it can just be a little bit disenchanting, I guess, or less engaging. So, and there's actually, a lot of research that actually shows 70% of employees say that their sense of purpose is actually defined by their work. So their life purpose is defined by their work. So if you can make a connection between what the company does and the purpose of the company, it can make people's lives more fulfilling and can make them care a bit more about their work. So yeah, it's incredibly important. So again, if you can co-create that purpose statement with the team, it can be incredibly powerful. Yeah, and I've because I have done so many purpose statements with teams, I have categorized the types of purpose statements. If that would be useful, I can run you through those.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thanks for that. And definitely, we're going to dive into more like getting the book and knowing what and what is underneath there for us. Yeah, thank you. So, how did you help skeptical or disengaged team buy into purpose-driven plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the teams that struggle the most with the sort of purpose side of things tend to be companies that are service based. And
Yeah,
also, business to business is often struggle. So, whereas business to consumer companies often they can see the link with what they do pretty clearly. So, it's mainly companies that are B2B and service based that struggle. But quite often, so we do a bit of a customer persona exercise with them and help them to understand who their customers are and the difference that they make to those customers' lives. And that can be really helpful. So, for example, a client of mine who they make scrubs, like, for wearing in hospitals.
yeah,
So their statement is so that they're providing uniforms for nurses and doctors, and their statement is making people feel great at work. So that's sort of an example of, I think sometimes people think the purpose statement needs to be, changing the world or making the world a better place, which again, it comes back to it being true. If it doesn't actually feel authentically true for the team, then, they're not going to get on board with that. So it's understanding what your business does, and it doesn't have to be changing the world, but what you do is having an impact. So it's making other people's work easier, or it's enhancing whatever industry you're in. So everyone's contributing somehow. So it's kind of unpacking that and understanding what you do every day, and how, and connecting the dots and saying how that does help other people, or make a difference.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that is very lovely, being that everyone wants a sense of purpose when it comes to work. And even if the tag is not going to be more like changing the world, but it should definitely fit in the fact that it speaks volumes. So it's helping people, making things easier for them to do what they do. And that could be another way where you could actually hinge your purpose that make every of the team see it personal, and being that they are not just filling the vacuum, but that in the grand things of things, or making things better for people. And that was really, really amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's sort of yeah, and yeah, it has to be true. So don't say changing the world if you're not.
yeah,
You need to come back to, and just, it's fine. You could just sort of unpack it and think about it. And doing customer personas is a really helpful way to do that, and thinking about who you serve and how you're helping them and the difference you make to their lives. And that can really help with the purpose statement development.
yeah, amazing. So can you share an example of a business that completely changed once they clarify their where's and why?
Like an example of one? Yeah. So there's actually a wonderful example of a company called Tech for Good, who there's a story about them in the book. So they were sort of a traditional computer hardware reseller, and we did this workshop, defined their purpose as tech for good, and they literally shut down their entire business and started a new company called Tech for Good. And it's a purpose-led business. They are a B Corp organization. So, and they focus on serving not-for-profit sector, but also government sectors and sectors that care about social responsibility as well as technology. So they've become a supplier, a socially responsible supplier of computer hardware. So they're still doing what they were doing before, but they've tweaked their positioning, and they've tweaked their whole business model, and literally they changed their name. Yeah, and they're doing incredibly well. They were number 8 on the Australian Financial Review Fast Starters last year. So being purpose led has actually made them a very high growth company as well. So yeah, that was one that, they did incredibly well. And it was all the result of purely purpose work.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you. So, why do you believe that best strategy should be simple enough to fit into a poster?
The main reason is that it's memorable, and so it's on the wall. And because most of the time lower level employees don't even know what the strategy is. So whereas if it's on the wall for everyone to see every single day,
Yeah,
it can be incredibly powerful and connect what I do every day with the bigger picture. And yeah, I think that's the main reason. It's just memorable, and you can make day-to-day decisions based on that. And I've even had some leadership sort of people say, if they're working on things and they've noticed that, they're communicating what they want the team to do. And then the team has said, hang on, does that fit in with our strategy, our where and our
yeah,
why? And so there's the lower level employees bringing the upper level leadership team to say, hang on, that's not fitting in with our strategy. And then they say, you're right. And then they've corrected. So the whole team knows where they're going and why they're going there, and all activities, are really focused and aligned to those things. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful. If you can, I mean, it's a bit of an art to get those two statements, the moonshot and the purpose, exactly right. But if you do get them exactly right and they're on the wall all the time, it can drive the whole organization to be really focused and aligned in all the activities.
wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you. So, how can small business and trade based our team apply this idea without overcomplicating things?
That's a good question. So I've had quite a few businesses so in the sort of trades area, so which I understand is your audience. So a really lovely example, which is one of the stories in the book. So there's a company in Cairns called Hooker Boats, who they make boats for, and we did this customer exercise. So again, for tradespeople, you can think about who are your customers, and then that can help you define your purpose statement. So with the boat company, we looked at who are their customers, and their main customers were people who live on the islands. If they have a boat, it becomes like the car, like the family car. And then, so for them, having a dream of having a boat is really, really exciting. And then they become kind of the king of their community if they have one of these boats. And then the other customer we identified was a tradesperson who, if they have a boat that they can take out on the weekend, they're like really cool and the king. So we came up with a purpose statement for them, which was dream boats, which I love because it's only 2 words long, which is it's one of my favorite purpose statements. Yeah, I guess so. That was an exercise of purpose statement development, thinking about who the customer is. So having a really simple purpose statement like that, it made the whole team really engaged in their work and thinking. So every day when they're making boats, they're making dream boats. They're making someone's dream come true every day when they're building a boat. So it kind of made the team really more engaged in their work. And then their moonshot, it was a quantity moonshot. So it was to increase the quantity of boats being made. So their where and their why, it was to increase boats. I think it was 100 a year. And then their why was dream boats. So yeah, it can be used by any business. It's just thinking about what's your goal, and then what is the purpose? Why are we doing this every day? And sort of making a nice statement around that makes the team more engaged.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Claire. So, if a team feels stuck or uninspired right now, what is one first question they could actually ask themselves?
So I guess in terms of thinking by the end of the decade, I guess would be the first one. I would be thinking, what do you want to say by the end of the decade? If you're thinking, what do you want to achieve? So, and trying to put that into one goal and one statement. And this is a great time of year to think about it, being January. So, people are making New Year's resolutions. I guess thinking not just by the end of 2026, thinking by the end of the decade, so 2029, on New Year's Day in 2030, what do you want to have achieved? So yeah, I guess that would be the question.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Claire. So, final last question. Looking ahead, what do you hope that leaders take away from your book, the where and why long after they finish reading it?
So I guess I think people would find it useful in terms of I've written it in 2 parts. So the first half is sort of a little bit about the ethos and the stars, and the types of moonshots and the types of purpose statements. So it kind of explains that. But then the second half is actually how to do it yourself. So I think that would be a useful takeaway for people to actually practically do this themselves. So yeah, and I have sort of a lot of extra tools and things that people can download as well. So it makes it really, really clear. And I would love to hear about people and developing their own where and why. And then, I recommend in the book to have a launch party once you've developed that. So yeah, I would love to see photos and hear about your own stories as well.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Claire. So, Claire, for my audience who would love to actually know more about you, which platform is best to do this or to reach out?
Sure. So the book is on Amazon.com. It's just the where and the why, and also the book is it's all the extra information is available on my website as well, which is thewhereandthewhy.com. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so
yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Claire, thank you for bringing clarity to the topic that so many leaders struggle with. Your work reminds us that when people know where they are going and why it matters, everything's changed. For those listening, you can learn more about Claire and get her book, The Where and the Why. At The Where and the Why, and also you can get it. You can get the where and the why.com to see more like some glimpse of it, and also at Amazon. This has been the Arabia Show, where we explore the stories, strategy, and mindset shaping people who lead, build, and grow. Until next time, keep building with purpose. Once again,
Thank you so much for having me. It's been
Yeah,
great.
thank